everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Opening Tee podcast with your host, Jason Roslin here. And this one's a special one as we get to talk a little bit about the 82nd win from Tiger Woods. What a thrilling finish. It was, but a pretty tilting week, I'm not going to lie, in terms of watching golf and when it was going to be on and weather soaked and so on and so forth. So let's jump right in. Depending on when you're listening to this, of course, whether it be Monday morning, Monday afternoon, sometime Tuesday, welcome back. Thanks for joining me again. Or if this is your first time, thanks for giving it a listen. These are a short form podcast where in this one, the Opening Tee, I give about 20 minutes prepping for the week. And then I come back on Tuesday morning and give you a little bit more after salaries are released and contests and so on and so forth. So hopefully you find these short form podcasts, which you might even be able to listen to in about 15 minutes at 1.5x. Although, I'm not going to lie, sometimes, especially when my New England, Rhode Island accent comes out, I start to talk really fast. So at times you may not need to move it 1.5%, and 1.5x. Anyways, let's jump into the foursome of facts from last week. This is how we start off our week and learn about a little bit of last week. So Tiger shows us that when his driver is somewhat on, and when I mean somewhat, he's in the top 10 in fairway percentage, and this week he was top 10 in fairway hit percentage. When Tiger's driver is on tight tactical courses, it's his bread and butter. It's where he can win. And what do I mean by tight and tactical? Well, I mean that the yardage may have played about 7,000 or 7,100 yards this week, but what you didn't see is that a lot of the holes ended up being a 3-wood off the tee or an iron off the tee. So you take driver completely out of the play, which, yeah, sure, Tiger's good at driver. You know, he's fine. He doesn't hit it as long as some of these other guys do. Now, but it's obviously not his best club in the bag. Best club in the bag is being able to be tactical and find himself a way around the course, putt and chip well. And that's exactly what he did this week. Another course like that everybody knows, of course, is Augusta. Now, it may play a little longer, but again, it's tight, it's tactical. You need to miss it in the right places, and you need to have a good short game. So Tiger seems to be his bread and butter. We will certainly keep an eye on that as the time marches forward and when Tiger plays. Also, Gary Woodland seems to be right on that track as well. Pebble Beach is one of these courses that I would fit into this category of tight and tactical. Again, Tiger's driver has to be on. If you look at the U.S. Open that week, Tiger's driver wasn't really on like it was this week. So, Gary Woodland, another guy that's definitely interesting to note on these shorter, but may play a little bit more, play a little longer due to the tacticalness of the course. So, next one is Hideki Matsuyama. Shows the most emotion I've ever seen out of him. Personally, I loved it. I loved seeing the raw emotion from him because we rarely get to see it. Obviously, he fed off of that. So, make note of that for when the Olympics comes around in 9 months or so, and it's held in Tokyo, native to him as well. Again, he will probably be the rooting favorite, along with Tiger Woods if Tiger ends up making it, who's going to jump into the top 10 in the world likely after this win here at the Zozo. So, interesting to note there. As we move on to our third fact of the week, I'm going to go with the out-of-nowhere, life-changing winner of the week, and it goes to Stephen Brown on the Euro Tour, winning the Portuguese Masters and taking down a decent field. You know, Matt Wallace was there, Eddie Pepperell was there, Martin Keimer was there. So, you know, some good golfers, certainly some top 25 golfers in the world, top 50 golfers in the world competing. And Stephen Brown, you know, great story on Golf Digest on him if you got a couple of minutes to read it. If not, you know, basically crazy. I mean, the guy has gone to the Challenge Tour 7 out of 8 years that he's been around in professional golf. He hadn't broke 68 all season and did it, I think, 4 times each round here in the Portuguese Masters. So just a great, great story. 32-year-old from England, now has a 2-year exemption. So great story. Last one, this is your obscure fact of the week. Abraham Ancer hit 75% of his greens on the week, but didn't even break into the top 40. That is an ice-cold putter. It's been that way for a little while now, so he's going to need to get that straightened out, especially you know, with the President's Cup coming up and wanting to cement himself amongst some of the better players in the game. He's certainly going to need to get that fixed out here pretty quick. So we'll move on to our next segment, which normally would be your Not Your Average Miscut segment. I love the segment. It's a lot of fun. You get to go into some of those tragic miscuts that happen. We will be picking that up. It's actually not next week. Next week, the PGA Tour has a week off, as I believe maybe everybody does. It looks like, yeah, everybody's got a week off. So I'll come back and I'll do one probably half-hour pod where I'll take up some of the questions that I've gotten in it. And this one might actually be a video one because I'll go over some of the sheets and stuff like that. So we'll still have a little bit of content. But then the following week, we are back. It is, I believe, the Mayakoba Classic in Mexico, where we'll certainly have our Not Your Average Miscut segment for that contest. So let's go do a little review of last week of the top greens in regulation. Danny Lee, Danny Berger, so pair Danny's led it. Tiger Woods was third. Paul Casey, Adam Scott, Hideki Matsuyama, Gary Woodland, Charles Howell, Keegan Bradley, Tommy Fleetwood, Joaquin Niemann, and Abraham Ancer, who I just mentioned, all hit over 75% of their greens. That was the criteria. Here for me, average finish between them is 16.88. Excuse me, 16.883. Top driving accuracy goes to Kadira, Cabrera Bello, Woodland, Otsuki, Ryan Moore. Boy, what a terrible week he had. Tommy Fleetwood, Tiger Woods, Adam Scott, and Ches Reavie. Average finish was around 35. So as you can see last week, again, driving accuracy just did not seem to matter that much. Top putting review, though, no surprise. Tiger led it. Hideki was up there as well. Billy Horschel, Sung J.M., Ian Poulter, Sean Norris, Paul Casey, and Xander Schauffele. Now, what I did here with this one is it's putts per GIR, so it may not be the best strokes gained putters, but average finish between these guys, 12.875. So really strong there. And the last one, we will just review rather quickly the top birdies and give you guys who made over 20. So not too many. Tiger Woods, 27. Matsuyama was the next closest with 20 and an eagle. And then following him with also 20 birdies, Sung J.M., Billy Horschel, Xander Schauffele, and Keegan Bradley. So not bad. Rory McIlroy had 17 birdies with 2 eagles. So he comes pretty close to that 20 point as well. That moves 20 birdie mark as well. That moves us into our DraftKings points review, which is actually a perfect segue into it, as Kevin Tway was the big mover here. He finished 18th in DraftKings points scoring, but finished 32nd for the tournament. 37th for the tournament. 19 spots higher, scoring 75.5 DraftKings points, had 19 birdies. Just couldn't avoid the bigger numbers, though. 13 bogeys and 2 double bogeys. Sean Norris was next. He scored in the 60s. Not bad for him. 15 spots higher. Tied for 51st in the overall tournament. Tied for 36th in DraftKings points. Jason Kokrak, he scored like in the 40s, and I think he finished almost last. 71st. Finished in the 50s in DraftKings points. So nothing too exciting there, to be honest with you. The next one, Roy Ishikawa, had a terrible Sunday. Finished in the 50s in points. The next one, though, and I haven't, he's 12 spots higher, along with Troy Merritt, who I brought up last week as birdie or better percentage. He does very well in it. This week, he put up 75.5 DraftKings points as well, tying him for 18th with Kevin Tway, and he came in 30th for the tournament. So Troy Merritt, 17 birdies this week, comes in, and this is the DK points review. What I'm doing is I'm looking for guys that are scoring better than they're actually finishing, see if it's a trend, and Kevin Tway and Troy Merritt certainly are popping up. So maybe take note of that, as let's see, I'll verify just quickly before we move into our Spotlight DFS contest for the week. Let's see, is Troy Merritt in the field this week? It doesn't look like Troy Merritt made the field this week. That doesn't surprise me. He's not in the top 50 in the world. But the top 30, yeah, he's probably not in that either. Kevin Tway, let's see if Kevin Tway is in the field. Maybe not. Kevin Tway might not be in the field either. Kevin Tway's not in the field, so neither of those golfers in the field, but certainly when they play again, they probably both will be in Mayakoba, Mexico. Certainly something to take a look at. Oh, Kevin Tway's in the field. I apologize. Yeah, I thought so. That makes sense. Kevin Tway is in the field, so something to take a look at this week. All right, on to the DFS contest. Pretty tight scoring this week. The $333 one, which only has about 21 entries, that had the highest points total for the cash line, 461. Then it ranged from 442 in the $12 single entry, all the way up to 450 in the $100 stinger, and in between those. So not a wide range. The 555 was 445 points. The big $8 was 449 points. And the $200 single entry was 445 points. All right, that's our review of last week. Hopefully you've gotten good enough information, at least to try, and if you missed it or were focused on football, at least you got a good enough information about who's playing well or who played well enough to focus on for this week, where the golfers are heading to Sheishan Country Club. Sheishan, you tell me. I'm sorry, I'm really bad at it. We've got plenty of data on this. Funny part is, though, we've had a trending harder golf course over the last 4 years. So 4 years ago, so that would bring us back to what, 2015 here, was 43rd out of 50 hardest golf courses. Then all of a sudden it made a jump up to 25th in 2016 or 2017, jumped up to 13th the following year, followed up by the third hardest golf course on the rotation in the 2019 schedule for the PGA Tour last year. Very interesting, especially that it's a par 72, just about 7,300 yards, 7,260. So sure, depending on where they set the tees up, they can get it up to 7,300 yards. So all the par 3s are over 200 yards, 2 right at 200 and 2 in the 217 and 212 range. So certainly an area to be focused on for this week is the 200 plus range. As far as the par 4s go, we've got 4 that are going to be under 400 yards. So we're almost guaranteed at least 4 wedges there. And then only, 2 long ones at 486. And then we got another 4 or so mixed in the 400 to 450 range. So not overly long on the par 4s. Par 5s are not overly long either. However, there was not many eagles made at all last year. So even though the longest one is 603, the shortest one being 538, the 18th hole, the other two being 550 and 563, makes the holes play obviously easy, but not many birdies. So interesting to note there. Sheishan Country Club for the WGC HSBC champion. It's about 45 minutes from downtown Shanghai, where I believe HSBC has their headquarters, but I could be wrong. It's built around villas and expensive homes. It's an expensive part of the country. It's very much a tree line with a ton of trees on the golf course. I mean, a ton. Some of them being ancient. One of the most known ones is called the Ginkgo, over 1,000 years old. I think it's on the 4th hole or something like that, if I remember the telecast correctly from last year. And the holes 16 and 17 provide a beautiful rock quarry. If anyone is familiar with Sim Golf, the game on the computer from quite a while ago, and you use rock quarry, just some nice aesthetics to the golf course. Nothing really that comes into play or anything. Okay, so the numbers that we know, because we have tons of data on the course. Easiest hole is number 2 normally, and the hardest hole is number 9. Since it's a WGC event, this brings in a real good field. So as we're learning about the actual tournament itself now, top 50 in the world are here to compete. The OWGR, that's the first qualification. The winner of the Open Championship, if not qualified in the top 50. Winner of the match play, same situation there as well. Then top 30 of the prior year's FedEx Cup points list. Then the current year European Tour Order of Merit of guys not already qualified. Current year Asian Tour Order of Merit, about 4 of them. Current year Japan Golf Tour Order of Merit, 2 of them. Prior year Australia Asia Tour Order of Merit, 2 of them. Prior year Sunshine Tour Order of Merit, 2 of them. and 6 selected Chinese players, followed by sponsor exemptions, giving us a grand total of, I believe, 78 golfers again. Same thing as the Zozo, same thing as the CJ Cup that we got for the last 2 weeks. So that is the qualifications. Maybe a couple of more qualifications this week, since it is an official WGC event. And that's why we get a little bit more of a mix between the European Tour and then, of course, the PGA Tour players. That's why probably a little bit more of the world's top 50 here as well, as some of those players like Matt Wallace and such are in the field. So, what does that mean, and what is that going to give us for our second to last segment, where I give out my prices for the week, or what I believe they're going to be. And then, of course, I review them tomorrow on the pod. So, I think that Rory this week, as Justin Thomas is going to take the week off. He got the nod last week. I think Rory comes in at 11.9K. The tie for third, pretty high owned, second price on the board. I suspect Rory will come in really expensive this week, with gamers probably not afraid to roster him there. Xander Schauffele, the defending champion of the event, top 10 last week after bogeying one of the easiest holes on the course, if not the easiest, the 18th hole. I think he comes in at 11.3. Defending champion, he was pretty highly owned, not real highly owned. It's going to be close between him and Hideki. I'll be interesting to see if they lean Xander because of the course history, or if they just go with Hideki, who's back-to-back top 5s now. So I've got that third price, whether it be Xander or Hideki, at 10.9. With Justin Rose, who's been away for a little while now from the PGA Tour, making his 2019-20 calendar year debut, 10.6K, followed by Tommy Fleetwood, who was pretty popular this week. I got him coming in at 10.4K. With Paul Casey, who they priced at 10.1 last week, had a good week this week, tied for 15th, pretty solid. I'm going to throw him, I'm not going to throw him. I believe they'll throw him right back in at 10.2K. So that's it. 6 golfers above that 10K mark this week. Maybe they slide in one more, as the field is strong. Tony Finau had a fantastic year here last year, losing in the playoff to Xander. So maybe they move Tony Finau up to that 10K number. He was 9.2 last week and was really popular in some of the contests. So maybe he does get the bump, although he did not have a good week last week. So I think they'd probably be pushing it a little bit too much. So I think they go with 6 this week. Last week, I think it was a little bit more. I think they ended up having 7. So, all right, we're at about the 18-minute mark, which is a good spot to be. So before we get on out of here, we're going to set up tomorrow's pod, where I'm going to bring in Matt Jones again, the statistical nut, at Matt Jones TFR on Twitter. He and I are going to talk about some of the stats, which certainly led me to 2 of my big plays last week, where I was able to first get Tiger Woods, which I always play at a minimum of 20%, especially at courses that I like. If it's that I like him at, or I think I like him at, I normally bump it up to 30%. So that found me a nice lineup where I was able to pair him with Matsuyama, Xander Schauffele, who was my overweight on FanDuel, along with Corey Connors and Billy Horschel, who we highlighted on the pod last Monday, coupled with Victor Hovland, who was kind of my throw-in there, a salary guy that just filled out the lineup. That ended up taking down the $9 on FanDuel last week. Probably thankfully that it was a rather small contest, as it would not have been Victor Hovland in first place in the best lineup. Had there been many more lineups, I'm sure they would have found their way. Somebody would have. Maybe even me, doubtful though, because I didn't find my way to it without it being a big contest. So, trying to see, I'm pretty sure you would have been able to find somebody better than Hovland last week at that price level. Even Sung J.M. might have been able to slide in at that Victor Hovland level, which would have obviously given you 40 more points than I already got, but still was able to get my first win of the season. So what does that bring me to? It brings me to the stats of this week, and no surprise here. Proximity over 200 going to be super important. You're going to guarantee 4 from that distance just in the par 3s. Then if you include in the par 5s, which a lot of them may be going for, we're talking about 8 already right there. And then when you look at the par 4s, there's at least 2 at 480 yards. So we're talking about possibly even half of the golfer's proximity approach shots being from over 200 yards. And depending on the wind direction, which is probably why you see, and of course rough length, why you see scores so drastically higher and lower, being one of the hardest courses and being one of the easiest courses. So it sets up for a really interesting week. So proximity from 200 yards and over, very important. Strokes gained from par 72s under 7,300 yards. And for the last one, we just saw how very important putting was this week, so we'll throw in birdie or a better percentage to Matt and see if we can match up some putting with it. See if we can get some correlation on putting or on putting green sizes, something in that nature. I will pose it to Matt overnight and see what he comes back with tomorrow. So until then, everybody, thanks for stopping on by and joining me for another edition of the Opening Tee Podcast. This one for the WGC HSBC champions. Got one more week, and then we're back home for a couple of weeks before a month or so off during the off season of the PGA Tour. So still a lot to play for here in the next couple of weeks. I'm sure prize pools will be out pretty soon with 50,000. Looks like, actually, as we're talking here, that's always nice. They release it, and looks like another 50,000 as expected up top in first place to the $8. However, the smallest prize pool of the fall season, which does not surprise me, this is standard of what DraftKings has done over the last couple of years, 175,000 guaranteed for the prize pool there. Pretty weak, but still 50,000 up top, not very weak, and only 25,000 entries. So, lower number of entries. I know that's certainly one way of looking at it, but anyways. We will discuss a little bit more tomorrow. Again, thanks everybody for joining. Sorry, I was ending it, and then I saw DraftKings release their prize pool, so I wanted to talk about it for a second. But again, thanks for joining another edition of the Opening Tee Podcast. We will see you tomorrow for shot 3 from the tee. Cheers, everybody.